Hello, soldiers. I'm Commander Cyrious. Do you smell that? Hackusations in the air. Is there anything better than getting called an aimbot faggot by some PS2 noob? It's like chicken soup for the planet men's soul. Today we're going to talk hackusations, when they're harmless venting, and when they become a bit more of a problem. I'll see you Planetside, soldiers. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what a hacker looks like. You may have seen them before. The most blatant are flying around as a tank, as a sunderer, as a max. They have no clip, they have aimbot, they can see through walls. They disrupt the server for a little bit, and then everyone bands together, and it's sort of like a community event. Apparently this is the boss level, guys. Everyone on the max. Everyone yells mass report, and you hope that Rogue Planet Games gets to it as soon as possible. So this is the end of the spectrum where a hackusation is for sure accurate, because they're a hacker. On the way other end of hackusations are where it's pretty obvious the person is not a hacker, and they're probably just calling it out to vent. They're frustrated they lost a fight, so they sling an insult at someone. I think it's supposed to be derogatory, but there is no bigger compliment that I can get than a hackusation. Now, over the years, it feels like people have mostly learned the difference between a hacker, someone either blatantly flying around as a max or running a 96% headshot ratio on their LMGs, and a good player. Accusators have been berated in game, they've been berated on Reddit, they've been berated in videos of mine. So they either accept that they're bad, or they accept that the other person is just really good. But I'm a little concerned because I've seen a new form of hackusation rise, and that is the Lagswitchusations. This one is even harder to counter. We know pretty well, due to third-party stat sites, what reasonable stats are. And we know what blatant hacks look like. So we can pretty easily figure out if a hackusation has any merit. But once you start getting into the latency, and if anyone intentionally creates it, that is a much harder thing to pick apart. As people shifted away from hackusations, just complaining people were laggers, people with high ping, became more common. And this is a pretty good one, because a hackusation is easily refuted, whereas whether someone has the high ping, you really have no idea. You'd have to be looking at their screen, you'd have to see their connection quality. And sure, there are some very blatant high ping players, but most of the lagcusations I see are really just people complaining about the interpolation and extrapolation of the game. But while I think lagcusations are the same crutch as a hackusation, that is blaming the other person for your loss, rather than trying to improve yourself, I want to jump all the way into the more egregious accusation, that is accusing someone of actually intentionally modifying their connection with a lag switch. Now, as we move into this clip, I want to make sure you take note of my network ping and server latency. It's perfect. The server isn't stressed out right now, population is relatively low. I actually live relatively close to the servers, so I always get a very good connection and a very high bandwidth, low latency internet. So as you watch this clip, understand that my connection is terrific. I've talked about why I think hackusations aren't perfectly harmless in a previous video, but here's a quick refresher. If they're mindless venting, no big deal to me. I like yell chat meta. But more often, I see them as a crutch and excuse to not get better. The person probably has some heavy input latency from low performance. Moving their mouse feels like it's stuck in mud. It's hard for them to improve their aim, so when they go up against very talented people, they just assume that that level of performance is impossible, and they hackusate. And there are definitely people that are out there that are totally convinced that hackers are rampant, not only in Planetside, but a lot of games. And while they are a real issue, they are not a serious issue in Planetside. And the same goes for Lagcusations and Lagswitchusations. Speaking of Lagswitchusations, here's one now. Okay, skillless air-to-ground scrub. Can't argue with that one. Banshees are cancer. Hashtag praise rel, they just got nerfed. But here's where they lack knowledge. I was clear inside the fucking spawn, lag switch bitch. Now again, if he's strictly harmlessly venting and he doesn't believe that, then it's no problem. But let's watch the tapes again, shall we? Mr. Decoherence here is immobile on his AV mana turret. Very easy prey for a Banshee, even from so far up. He tried to run for the spawn room, but was dead before he got there. Now that's on my screen. but I am seeing an image of him about 250 milliseconds in the past from what he sees on his screen. So the effect on his end is he makes it in the spawn room, he's behind the one-way shield, and he's still taking damage. And since he doesn't understand latency, interpolation, and extrapolation, which he would have if he watched Commander Cyrious' video linked in the upper right of the screen, which is key knowledge to be successful in any first-person shooter. But since he doesn't understand all of that, the fact that he took some damage behind the shield, he thinks it's an issue on my end, even though my connection is perfect. Now, for all we know, he could be running 150 millisecond ping. It's funny, the people that complain about it the most, half the time are the worst offenders. But this becomes the new crux for Planetside. Again, when I was talking about Hackusations previously, I brought up the fact that a lot of people consider them very harmless, but for a while there was this rampant belief that Planetside was filled with cheaters. And it's one of those social effects where if something's said a million times, even if it's not true, people start to believe it. And while Hackusations have mostly been defeated, the Lagswitchusations are a bigger thing now, and we're seeing a lot more Lagswitchusations. And so that same cycle I saw with Hackusations, where that kind of communal slippery slope began, where people in the community start thinking Planetside 2 is filled with tons of players that are cheating using a lag switch. This bullshit is very common from Synthesized and other players I won't name yet. And when I see someone say that, what it usually translates to, and everyone that's in Gobs and Recursion and whatever other good outfit wipes the floor with me. I have literally heard that statement from an open platoon leader, everyone in Gobs uses a lag switch. This guy goes on to say, net limiting has plagued this game for ages. And the simple fact of the matter is, no, it has not. It has barely been a problem for the game. Are there lag switchers? 100%. Yes, we've seen some on very, very rare occasions. But to go so far as to use the apocalyptic term plagued is a complete mischaracterization of how significant this problem is. Actually, ironically enough, it happened right in the thread. A Recursion member showed up to support the idea that it sucks to have to play against a player like this with a bad connection. This person, emboldened by the dog whistle in the previous post, thought there was critical mass in the community suggesting that all of Recursion and Gobs use net limiters. In comments that a few years ago would have been buried in downvotes, like saying Gob by far now gets to rest with 15 upvotes. And the comments continue like this. This is genuinely cheating. You shouldn't be allowed to do this on Emerald, bro. Well, no, it's not genuinely cheating. It's just a player playing from New Zealand. The servers have gotten worse over time, and where they used to be able to get 180 to 200 milliseconds, now they're getting 250 to 300. And we'll work more on the question of, should this be allowed? But that is very different than, this is cheating. It most definitely is not cheating, but we've got 111 people at least that think so. And then further down at that comment, you get people saying stuff like this, where the ignorance train is really getting deep, right? Because they hear cheat, so they think anti-cheat software. And yes, there are some software solutions for lag switching, but those are detected by BattlEye. And so now that the floodgates have opened, the social engineering is activated. What used to be just a friend's accusation is now mainstream. Now everyone's going to come out and say, yes, these guys are lag switching, these guys are full on cheating. I gotta pause a second because I did like the humor in one of these. The guy states, there is no internet in the world that's so shit it naturally lets you manipulate it to give you an advantage. Now, there's a million things wrong with that statement, and by the way, that's not Funky Town's statement, he's quoting someone. But I liked how we pointed out that people have been watching YouTubers with really shitty internet connections for a very long time. There's nothing new about this phenomena that there's only 5 servers, yet we have people playing from all over the world. There's going to be people that have to suffer through some shitty internet connections. And there's all this talk of how the lagger has the advantage with their shitty connection. And that's way too broad of a statement to say, because they also have a massive disadvantage to it. The advantage is always to the peaker. So if they turn the corner on you, yes, they have a bigger advantage because they have more shots on you before you can feel them. But the same exact advantage goes to you if you turn the corner on them. You can have them dead before they feel the first one. So this notion that the lag advantage goes one way is completely false. But obviously, on a good player who's usually the aggressor, who knows how to peek or turn the corner before the other person, yes, there is a net benefit to them from the lag. Anyways, so we've gone from just a question of should this be allowed. It's a dumb question because we all know no one wants it, but that question begs a binary answer. Yeah, just Daybreak can flip a button and the right people are going to get banned, let alone that if you banned everyone that has more than 100 millisecond ping, the game would be dead immediately. No, the reality is it's much, much more difficult than that. But as this conversation festers, the conspiracies start forming. Actually, cheating is a real problem in Planetside. There are people using net limiting to their advantage. Oftentimes you do not even notice. The game just relies on BattleEye to blacklist net limiting programs, which it does. Which anyone can just recompile into a new program. It's the anyone that gets me, just like most of the population out here is out there looking for some sort of program and anyone's gonna go do it. No, there are a few very rare bad actors that do this. And there are absolutely people out there that are using net limiters. But it is extremely few and far between. When you see someone out there that's got some weird warpy connection, 99 times out of 100, no, 999 times out of 1,000, it's just someone with a bad connection. There is no greater conspiracy. This is not a rampant or a problem that has plagued Planetside 2. And it's all more obvious when the example everyone's talking around is someone that's clearly not net limiting and just happens to have a bad connection. If the person that everyone's certain is doing it is innocent, then you gotta assume more of the people that you're unsure about are probably innocent as well. And you have a comment saying users will not attempt to interfere with, hack into, or decipher any transmission to or from the servers running Planetside 2. Again, alluding and suggesting that the player has somehow intentionally modified their network traffic to cause this to happen, which is inaccurate. So, while it is absolutely cheating to use a lag switch, there's nothing in the linked videos to suggest they're lag switching, just that they don't have a great connection. And after playing on Connery with this player for a very long time, I can tell you just from first-hand experience dueling them that it's not a person using a lag switch. Now, since most of the examples I saw in the video were just very normal Planetside extrapolation to a high ping player, I want to break down one of my own videos that is Planetside 2 extrapolation to what I think is really a low ping player, an average ping player. As always, got to start showing my connection is normal and stable. Server latency is running a little bit higher than usual, but it's under a little heavier load right now. Please excuse the very weird looking weapon. For a while there was a bug with motion blur that made weapons look very funky when combined with certain settings. So after I get forced off the roof, I'm expecting one or more of them to come after me. So I decide not to risk the reload attempt, and there he goes, the good old floor medic popping up. Now this happens a lot, and I know it's going to happen because of extrapolation. And when someone's coming off a roof, they're traveling at a higher velocity, which means they're going to get extrapolated further into the ground. The same thing happens with someone going from a strafe to a sprint. As they accelerate from the sprint, extrapolation is going to make them go even faster than a maximum sprint speed. So guys, when you see someone running in the distance and then they all of a sudden stop and, I'm going to call it rubber band, but you don't actually see them rubber band in this game, they just pop back to an old position. That's because the server was extrapolating them forward, and then when it finally got a packet update, it had to correct their position, which was maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 meters behind where they had extrapolated the character to. I understand it's not fun to play against, and it's worth continued conversation with Daybreak games where the correct thresholds are for ping. And newsflash, we're going to start seeing a lot more of this because Connery is dead. It used to kind of act as a good central server for the world for people that didn't live close to one of the servers, tended to have better ping than Emerald did. But Connery's dead now. Between losing half its population due to Soltech, and players generally migrating to Emerald because there's just better population there, it's really not a viable option to play on anymore. So Emerald will start seeing more and more of these elusive floor medics popping up. So guys, if you actually see people lag switching, and you should really go watch that video on interpolation and extrapolation so you can help weed out the ones that are just high ping, great. Take videos and report it. But when you see people running around with just a normal high ping connection and start a witch hunt based off of it, that's the wrong way to go. Then you've got to go back to the conversation of having What are the ping limits? What should they be? What's a reasonable ping limit? How much population are you willing to lose to keep your play session more pristine? I can tell you, as a person that's got their character stuck on a server that only gets good population on Friday and Saturday nights, it was a lot more fun when we had big battles all the time, even though there were higher paying players. Well, soldiers, that's it for Commander Cyrious. Until next time, I will see you Planetside.